When we talk about attraction, real, deep, lasting attraction, we often make the mistake of thinking that more presence equals more impact. That if you're always available, always responding, always giving, somehow you're showing your value. But here's the truth that turns that idea on its head. Scarcity creates value. And the more available something is, the less we truly appreciate it. Think about anything in life that holds real value. Rare gemstones, limited edition art, first editions of classic books. What makes them valuable is not just their quality, it's their rarity. You can't just walk into a store and grab them. They're not lying around for everyone to have. They require effort, patience, sometimes even sacrifice. And that's exactly how it works with people, especially in romantic dynamics. Now let's talk about men. A man is wired on a biological and psychological level to pursue what feels slightly out of reach. That doesn't mean out of touch or cold or manipulative. It means he values what he has to earn. When a woman is fully available from day one, constantly giving her time, her attention, her energy, what often happens is that the man starts to feel like there's nothing at stake. There's no cost, no challenge, no risk. And without those elements, there's no sense of true reward either. This isn't about playing games. This is about understanding how the human mind reacts to abundance versus scarcity. When something is always there, always accessible, always predictable, the emotional urgency fades, and with it, the motivation to protect and prioritize it. But when something begins to feel rare, when there's the sense that you could lose it, that it has standards, boundaries, and doesn't just hand itself over to anyone, that's when it starts to shine. There's a reason we hold on to the memories of people who walked away with class, who didn't beg, who didn't lower their value to try to make us stay, because they felt rare. And it's not until they were gone that we started to really understand what they brought to the table. That's the brutal beauty of scarcity. It forces clarity. It makes people reevaluate what they've lost, and it puts a mirror up to their own choices. For a man, the moment he realizes that a woman is not afraid to walk away is often the moment he starts to look at her through a different lens. Suddenly, she's not just a woman who wanted him, she's a woman who could have had him, but chose herself. That distinction is powerful, and it makes a lasting imprint. Now, here's the twist. This kind of scarcity isn't about pretending to be busy or faking disinterest. That's superficial. Real scarcity is about living a life that's genuinely full, with or without him. It's about knowing your time is valuable, that your energy is sacred, and that your love is a gift, not a transaction. A man senses that, even if he doesn't fully understand it. He feels the shift. He feels the difference between a woman who needs his attention to feel whole and one who is whole already. And ironically, it's when a woman embodies that energy, when she's not glued to her phone, not anxiously checking for his name to pop up, not adjusting her whole life to fit into his schedule, that a man starts to crave her presence. He realizes her time isn't on tap, that her emotional availability isn't an open bar. It has limits. And because it has limits, it has value. When something is rare, we take care of it. We think twice before we mishandle it. We don't want to lose it because we know we can't just replace it with the next thing that comes along. This is what makes a man fall harder. It's not the constant access. It's not the flood of affection. It's the sense that what he's being given is special and that it could disappear if he doesn't rise to the occasion. A feeling, that tension between desire and risk, between access and scarcity, is what forges deeper emotional bonds. It wakes a man up from autopilot. It reminds him that he can't be passive. He can't coast. He has to earn what he wants to keep. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood moves in modern relationships. People often mistake it for weakness, for giving up, for surrendering. But in reality, letting go is one of the strongest, most self-assured actions a person can take. Especially for women, choosing to walk away from a dynamic that doesn't serve them isn't a sign of defeat. It's a loud, clear, and confident statement of self-worth. It says, I know what I bring to the table, and I won't beg for a seat at yours. When a woman lets go, she's not saying she didn't care. She's not pretending she wasn't invested. What she's really saying is, I care about myself more. And that level of emotional maturity is powerful. It doesn't come from a place of pride or ego. It comes from having done the inner work. It comes from understanding that staying in a relationship where you're undervalued, overlooked, or misunderstood slowly chips away at your identity. It makes you smaller, quieter, dimmer, and eventually, if you stay long enough, it makes you forget how bright you used to shine. Now, imagine a man watching a woman do this, not with drama, not with bitterness, but with quiet confidence. She doesn't beg him to see her worth. She doesn't spiral into long texts or emotional breakdowns. She simply steps back, removes her energy, and says through her actions, "This is not where I thrive." That moment hits hard because men aren't used to that. They're used to attention, to emotional availability, to women trying to fix things, to prove themselves, to hold on even when the connection is unbalanced. But when a woman breaks that pattern and lets go with grace, it's a jolt to the system. It forces the man to confront something he didn't want to see, that he was taking her for granted, that her presence was never guaranteed, that her loyalty wasn't unconditional, it was earned, and now it's gone. And in that moment, everything shifts, the dynamic flips. Suddenly the man is no longer in control. She is. Not because she's playing a game, but because she reclaimed her value by walking away. There's a deep strength in emotional detachment when it comes from a place of clarity and self-respect. A woman who can detach herself from someone she loves, not out of anger but out of truth, carries a rare kind of inner peace. She's not bitter. She's just done. That's the kind of energy that lingers. That's the kind of decision that haunts a man later. Not because she tried to punish him, but because she didn't. Letting go is also an act of trust. Trust in life, trust in timing, and most importantly, trust in yourself. It's saying, even though I want this to work, I refuse to abandon myself to make it happen. It's one of the most powerful boundaries a woman can set, and it speaks volumes without needing to shout. A man may not realize it in the moment, but over time he will begin to understand that her absence is louder than her presence ever was when she was overextending herself. What many don't realize is that letting go isn't passive. It's not just walking away. It's choosing peace over chaos, alignment over attachment. It requires emotional control, awareness, and the ability to sit with discomfort rather than chase temporary relief. That's what real self-worth looks like. Not chasing someone who won't meet you halfway, but stepping back and allowing space for what truly aligns. A woman who lets go is not saying she's unbothered. She's saying she's done explaining her worth. She's saying, I gave it a chance. I gave it love. And now I give it distance. That distance becomes the mirror a man didn't know he needed. It shows him what he couldn't see when he had her. That her love was a privilege, not a given. That being with her required effort, presence, growth, and that by the time he realizes all this, she may have already moved forward with her life, carrying her self-worth like armor. Letting go then becomes a silent revolution. It's not an explosion, it's a clean break. It's not chaos, it's clarity. and it leaves behind something more powerful than noise ever could, the echo of a woman who loved herself enough to leave. Attraction is an energy game, and polarity is the charge that keeps that energy alive. In the dance between masculine and feminine energy, one of the most essential yet often overlooked truths is this. When a woman starts chasing a man, she flips the polarity. And the moment that shift happens, the dynamic begins to lose its spark. Masculine energy, at its core, thrives on pursuit. It finds purpose in the challenge, the chase, the hunt. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about creating space for a man to step into his role. When a man feels like he's chasing something valuable, he is more present, more intentional, more invested. He feels aligned with who he is. It activates his sense of direction, his mission, his desire to earn what he values. But when that chase is taken away, when the woman starts doing all the initiating, overgiving, planning, texting, and reaching out, the polarity collapses. Suddenly, he's no longer in pursuit mode. He's being pursued. And while that might sound flattering in theory, in reality, it's often the beginning of disconnection. When a woman shifts into chasing energy, she unintentionally steps into her masculine. She becomes the planner, the driver, the doer. And the man who once felt the excitement of trying to win her now feels like the one being evaluated, followed, or even managed. The tension that made him feel alive in the relationship fades, and with it, his interest can begin to wane. Not because the woman isn't amazing, but because the dynamic no longer allows him to express the part of himself that was drawn to her in the first place. It's not about playing cold or detached. It's about understanding how energy moves between two people. Feminine energy doesn't chase, it invites. It doesn't demand, it inspires. It doesn't need to control the outcome, it trusts the process. And that trust creates space for the man to rise, to show up, to take action. It makes him feel needed, not in a way that makes the woman dependent, but in a way that makes him feel like his presence matters, that he's contributing, that he's earning her time, her attention, her heart. When a man no longer has a role to play, when he no longer feels like he's in motion towards something meaningful, he becomes passive. And passivity is the enemy of passion. Chasing flips the entire structure of polarity on its head and often leaves both people feeling unsatisfied. The woman begins to feel like she's doing all the work, like she's carrying the relationship. She grows resentful, wondering why he isn't matching her effort. And he, on the other hand, starts to feel suffocated or uninspired, often without even knowing why. He pulls away, she chases harder, and the cycle deepens. There's something deeply magnetic about a woman who knows her worth and doesn't feel the need to prove it. She doesn't chase because she knows that the right man doesn't need to be hunted. He's already tuned in. He sees her, values her, and wants to show up for her. When she stays in her energy, receptive, confident, grounded, she becomes a mirror to the man. She reflects back the best in him. She inspires him to step into the masculine energy of pursuit, not through pressure, but through presence. Men fall for women who give them room to move toward them, not because they don't want closeness, but because the journey toward that closeness is what deepens their investment. If everything is handed over too soon, too easily, without requiring any real emotional engagement, the depth of connection never forms. That's not just a theory, it's how we're wired. When a woman overextends, reaches out constantly, rearranges her schedule, fills all the empty space and leaves no room for the man to lean in, it may come from love, but it erodes the attraction, because deep down a man wants to earn the woman he values. He wants to feel that he has a role in her life, not just as a recipient of her affection, but as someone who contributes to her happiness, her safety, her peace. A sense of contribution is what makes him feel bonded, it makes him proud, and it reinforces his emotional connection. Reversing the polarity takes away that opportunity. And often, by the time a woman realizes that she's been doing the chasing, it's already drained her. The energy feels one-sided. She feels unappreciated. And it's not because she wasn't enough, it's because she stepped into a role that was never hers to play. There is something undeniably powerful about a woman who can walk away. Not in anger, not as a manipulation, but from a place of deep self-respect. A woman who can detach herself from a situation that no longer aligns with her value isn't just protecting her peace, she's owning her power in its purest form. That kind of energy is magnetic. It commands attention without trying, and it leaves a lasting impression on anyone who experiences it. When a woman stays in a dynamic that isn't meeting her emotional needs, that is unbalanced or draining, she slowly starts to lose herself. She may begin compromising, shrinking, bending, and overgiving. She may tell herself that things will get better, that the man will change, that her love will be enough to fix the cracks. But deep down, something starts to feel off. And if she ignores that feeling for too long, she becomes a version of herself she no longer recognizes. Tired, anxious, insecure, and constantly second-guessing her worth. That's why the ability to walk away is so vital. It's not about giving up too soon, it's about recognizing when your presence is no longer being honored. And instead of staying and fighting for crumbs, a woman who knows her power chooses to rise. She understands that staying somewhere that asks her to abandon her standards is more damaging than leaving. And even if it hurts, even if it breaks her heart, she walks because she knows that her value isn't negotiable. This kind of woman doesn't need to scream or beg to be seen. Her silence speaks louder than any confrontation. The moment she walks away is the moment the man realizes what he had. He may not have noticed it while she was always available, always forgiving, always showing up regardless of how he treated her. But the second she removes her energy, the void becomes deafening. The absence of her warmth, her attention, her presence, it hits him in a way her words never could. A woman who can walk away with grace understands that her power doesn't come from being chosen, it comes from choosing herself. She doesn't need validation to confirm her worth. She doesn't need a man to realize her value before she believes in it herself. She knows that love should not be a battlefield. It should not be a constant fight to prove that she deserves consistency, respect, or affection. She's done playing small in the name of love. To a man, this kind of strength is unforgettable. It's not something he can easily replace, because in a world where so many people chase, cling, or compromise their standards to hold on to someone, she becomes rare. And rare things don't just fade into memory, they linger, they become a reference point. They become the one he remembers when he's with someone else who's too available, too eager, too quick to bend. The beauty of this strength is that it doesn't come from anger or resentment. It comes from clarity. It comes from knowing that her peace is worth protecting, that her future self will thank her for walking away now rather than staying too long and losing herself. And once a woman embodies this truth, she becomes unshakable. She no longer fears letting go because she's learned to trust herself to handle what comes after.